Yoga Teacher Hotline.
Hi, it's Michelle. My question is about pricing. For example, I was asked to teach a weekly chair yoga class at a seniors complex. My thought has been for years that I need to come away with at least $50 per class. Is this right? Is it not enough? Is it too much? And when does a person update their prices? Another example is when teaching a workshop at a studio. I want to come away with more than just a regular class, but how much should I expect?
This question is going to be a little bit tricky. Different communities, different cities, different countries are going to have different standards of what's normal for what yoga teachers can or shouldn't be paid. If it doesn't really apply for your community, your country, where you're living, maybe there'll be some ways to still think about this and frame it within the way that works for you and where you live. So how much should a yoga teacher be paid? From the experience as a studio owner, a struggling studio owner, right? I remember definitely as a teacher and studio owner paying those checks to all my teachers and being like, whew, okay, that was most of our income and I'm not really paying myself But I say this because I also didn't ever want to shortchange my teachers either, right? I still recognize everybody deserves to get paid something that is livable, hopefully. And there's a lot of different ways to look at this. If you're a contractor working at a yoga studio, you're essentially your own business. Or you're an employee. So one of the most important things that you can do when it comes to working for a yoga studio is make your role very clear. If there is not a contract or some sort of written agreement of what your expectations are as a teacher at that studio, please get it in writing. And believe me, that is going to save you some headaches down the road if a studio owner or manager and you have any sort of confrontation, you have stuff in writing. Some people think, okay, maybe I should get compensated for my commute time. I should get compensated for that 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is before and after class. So that's why things in writing are important. I think it's important to establish whatever price you get per class. Is that including the 15 minutes? And if it's the before and after time of the class, how much before and after time? And so you look at that price and you go, okay, does that seem fair? Am I okay with getting paid for that natural extra time, cleaning up after, chatting with students? Maybe you're signing students in. Whatever those extra duties are beyond your teaching, maybe that's a negotiation point for whatever it is with a studio. Okay, so you kind of decide what your sweet spot is, just knowing that there's often these extra duties. Or just knowing what your expectations are. Maybe the studio owner is like, no, you are getting paid for the hour and a half, whatever it is that you're teaching, that's it, bump. And then there's also sometimes a pay structure. You might get paid a base rate and then any additional percentage or money amount per person in the class. That's not right, that's not wrong, good or bad, this isn't binary. Sometimes that has great benefits, sometimes it doesn't. Let's say you get the 6 a.m. slot and nobody comes to it, and yet you're getting paid per head, but you're not making as much money because it's not a busy class. And that's kind of unfair because that spot isn't the Tuesday 5 p.m. that's more popular and therefore getting more money. But as the studio owner, they're like, well, we're barely getting paid for that class either. I've been on both sides. I understand it's hard. So then I would go, okay, well, what is the average in my city, in my community that I'm in? And it's worth talking to any friends, colleagues, fellow yoga teachers and find out what they're making per class. What are they paying their teachers? And then I think you'll pretty quickly find that most studios are going to be pretty close to each other. Let's just say the average rate per class in your community is $50. And that includes being there for that extra couple minutes, maybe signing people in, but on average is $50 per class. Then that's kind of what the market is dictating, whether you agree or enjoy it or not. If you're only relying on yoga studio classes as your main, let's say you're a full-time teacher, you're doing this is your gig, you're doing this full-time, and all of your classes are, let's say, that $50 an hour, you have to teach a lot of classes per week to make a living wage at, let's say, $50 or $30 or $40 an hour. And generally, that means that you're probably running around your community or city teaching over here and over there and all over the place to achieve that. And pretty much, it's a beautiful way to start to get burnt out and not enjoy teaching. So then the next answer to how much should I get paid per class is to actually just look beyond the yoga studio model. Your best bang for your buck as a yoga teacher is to start either running your own classes, workshops, and retreats-ish. I'd say retreats are sort of a financial bonus, if that. And that's another answer or question that I can answer at another time, talking about retreats. When you're reliant on yoga studios as your sole source of income, there's going to be a cap, the amount of money and time and energy that you have. So there's going to be a cap on how much you can make. But if you start to do your own classes, that cap changes, right? Because let's say you rent a hall, and let's say that hall is $35 an hour, and then you get 20 people. It's going to be more than $50. So there's a wonderful incentive to start to move out of that yoga studio system. However, if you're a newer teacher or newer to a community, it's going to be harder to get those 20 people into your class. So that's where the studio model comes in. Maybe you teach at a bunch of different studios around town so you can get your name out there. So you start to develop relationships with the different people that come, so that if you do, let's say, rent Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. in the local hall, then maybe you can attract some people. So that's going to be more financially abundant for you in the long term. A little bit more work, a little bit different work in order to keep getting the amount of people that you need. But if it's working better than trying to do $50. And the same goes with workshops. So for me, there was a point where I ran around and I taught everywhere, and it was exhausting, and I got burnt out pretty fast. And then I also realized, and I asked myself, and I said, hey, you know what? What do I like teaching the most? And I was at this point in my teaching journey where I was like, you know what? I love nerding out and spending a lot of time in a workshop style environment with people. And so then I realized, okay, that's where I'm enjoying more than the drop-in class and always having different people and that rigmarole of that style of teaching. Learning anatomy does not have to be complex, especially as a yoga teacher. Heart and Bones Teacher Training is the leader in anatomy-informed yoga, and it changes lives. So if you want this to be you and update your teaching, then join our next cohort of the Heart and Bones Yoga Teacher Training. I'm excited to go 2 hours, 3 hours, and just nerd out on a topic like the psoas, the shoulders, whatever it is. And also, it's more bang for my buck, because now people are going to not just pay $15, $10, $20 for the drop-in in your class that you would hold on a Tuesday night, but maybe they come and pay $50, $100, however much that will be for you in your studio, your community. Again, how long the workshop is, whatever that is for pricing. But all of a sudden now, if I can get 20 people at $50, I've just made more. But that's a one-time thing, right? So I recommend, for a more sustainable financial yoga career, have a little bit of variety. Work at a yoga studio, work at a couple yoga studios, maybe experiment with running your own class, maybe do a workshop or a day retreat or something once a month, and then you're going to start to see more income. Another thing you can do is one-on-ones. That typically pays a little bit more. Corporate classes, another financially helpful version of teaching outside the studio model. I can't give you an exact number. I can't say every yoga teacher everywhere has to get paid X amount, but it's important to diversify just for your own mental and emotional energy levels and for your bank account. Can I teach in different places? So I hope that gives you a bunch of different ideas and sparks some new ideas for you to start to make a sustainable income as a yoga teacher.